Winning Blueprint presents.
In the lab room, the market. Baltimore Ravens.
Welcome to the market. I'm your host, Lou. You're in the lab room. Thank you for joining me. Welcome to the market, the NFL's one-stop shop for all positions related to the field, otherwise known as free agency. It's that time of season where teams go to the market, shop around, and try to find players to help them supplement and make their rosters better. And today, I'm here to talk to you about the Super Bowl champion Baltimore Ravens. This is a busy offseason for the Ravens. Not only did they win the Super Bowl championship, not only did veterans Matt Burke and Ray Lewis retire, but there's a lot of things that the Ravens need to clear up in this offseason. They took care of Joe Flacco and that contract, and so they'll have their franchise quarterback in the fold in the 2013 season and beyond. But there's a lot of issues looming with this Ravens team. A lot of free agents to sign, and we'll get to all of those. Speaking of which, this is my comprehensive list of every single free agent on the market that's available in the 2013 free agency market. And I'll be using that list to help compile a list of free agents that I think the Ravens should target in the offseason. But before you can target other free agents, you need to take care of your own. And I'll be using this handy dandy, trustworthy, big board to help me talk about the Ravens and all of the needs that they need to take care of. And on this board, among the topics on it are notable free agents. Those are the free agents that the Ravens need to either re-sign in-house or allow to walk away and test the free agent market. Then you have positions of need. These are the positions that the Ravens need to fill as they have voids on their roster and need to fill them to be a better team in the 2013 season. And then players that can help them fill those positions of need will be listed on this board. So let's talk about the Ravens and how they need to address their free agency off-season moves. And I'm going to be consulting my big board while speaking to you about the Baltimore Ravens and the moves they should be making in this offseason. The first category that we will talk about is the in-house free agents for the Baltimore Ravens. These are the guys that they either need to re-sign or allow to walk away. And we'll name all of their notable free agents. And again, this list is not every single free agent that the Ravens have, but just the ones that I feel are notable, noteworthy. We'll talk about them one by one, break them down, tell you whether the Ravens are going to retain their services or allow them to walk, and give you my opinion as to whether the Ravens should retain their services or allow them to walk. So these are all of the in-house free agents that are notable in my mind for the Baltimore Ravens. L.A.B, Joe Flacco, Maake Kimiatu, Paul Kruger, Bryant McKinney, Ed Reed, Kerry Williams. You've got some restricted free agents in Ed Dixon, Arthur Jones, and Dennis Pitta. So we start with L.A.B. And look, I think he's going to be back in Baltimore. He needs to be back in Baltimore. The Ravens know he needs to be back in Baltimore. It's going to get done. They're taking an awfully long time, however, to get this deal done. There probably is a hang-up somewhere in there. The numbers aren't quite matching up. The Ravens want to pay him X amount of dollars. L.A.B is probably looking for X amount of dollars, and they need to figure out how to get on the same page. But it'll get done because the Ravens can't afford to allow L.A.B to walk away. He is their best linebacker. He was their best linebacker. He still is and will continue to be their best linebacker because I think the Ravens will have L.A.B back before free agency gets kicked off. Joe Flacco. We know he signed a big 6-year, $120 million deal. He's going to be back with the Ravens. He's not going anywhere. And the Ravens have their man in Joe Flacco. He's their franchise quarterback, and he will remain their quarterback for a long time. Miyake Kimiatu, he's gone. The Ravens double dipped with this guy. He started out with the Ravens. He left. He came back. He's no longer a force at defensive tackle. The Ravens were 20th in the league in stopping the run. And they were un-Ravens-like in the 2012 season, giving up 200-yard rushers in several different games. And he was part of the reason why he wasn't stout against the run. And he really never has been the same since tearing his ACL. And so he won't be back in Baltimore in the 2013 season. Paul Kruger. Here's a guy that the Ravens should re-sign. They need to re-sign, but they won't re-sign. I don't think the Ravens are going to have Paul Kruger back. There are several teams who will be vying for his services, and it will probably turn into a bidding war, one that the Ravens will not get into. I think Paul Kruger will walk away, and I think this is a guy that the Ravens should have back because I think he has immense potential, and he's going to turn into a budding star in the National Football League, but I don't think he'll be back in Baltimore in the 2013 season. Bryant McKinnie, here's a guy that was one of the linchpins of that Super Bowl run in the postseason. I thought Bryant McKinnie came back and really helped this offensive line gel together. He was really big at the left tackle position, and I think the Ravens have to have him back, and I believe he will be back with Baltimore in the 2013 season and beyond. You look at Ed Reed. Here's a wild card. We don't know what Ed Reed is going to do. Ed Reed, always in the offseason, it's a drama or a soap opera with Ed Reed. He's always talking about retiring. Now he says, no, I'm playing. But now he's threatening to go to places like New England. And so you just don't know what Ed Reed is going to do. The Ravens want him back. No question about that. I know he wants to be back in Baltimore. I'm pretty sure, just like Ray Lewis, Ed Reed would love to start and finish his career in Baltimore. But that's not to say that that's what's going to happen. Ed Reed might decide to pack up and leave. And so I don't know what's going to happen. The Ravens need to have him back. It would be nice if the Ravens could have him back, but you just never know with Ed Reed. Kerry Williams is a guy I think the Ravens would love to have back, but I'm not sure if they will. Again, Kerry Williams is a guy that might carry a hefty price tag, or at least one that is more than the Ravens are willing to pay. Again, this corner market is so oversaturated that maybe Kerry Williams won't command as much money as he's looking for on the free agent market, but he's a really good corner. He's physical. He makes plays. I think Kerry Williams is going to be able to test the free agent market, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up somewhere like Indianapolis with his old defensive coordinator, Chuck Pagano. So I could really see Kerry Williams not ending up with the Ravens in the 2013 season. Now, your restricted free agents, I don't think they're going anywhere. You got Ed Dixon and Dennis Pitta, first of all. Those are your two tight ends in Baltimore. I don't see the Ravens not having them back. And then if you wanted their services, you'd have to give up a pick. And I don't see teams wanting to give up a pick for these two tight ends, knowing that there are other tight ends on the market available, like a Fred Davis, like a Delaney Walker, like a Kellen Davis, a Jared Cook. I just don't see teams giving up picks to get these guys when there are available tight ends on the market that can be had by just paying them money and not having to fork over picks. Arthur Jones is another guy that the Ravens would definitely want back. He's stout against the run. He's a guy that can get after the quarterback in certain instances. And so Arthur Jones will be back. And again, I don't see a team wanting to give up a pick to get their hands on Arthur Jones. So those restricted free agents I don't think are going anywhere. I think they'll be back with Baltimore. And that's a good thing for the Ravens because all of these guys were key contributors in the 2012 season as they won the Super Bowl. So you look at positions of need for the Ravens. Inside linebacker, safety, defensive tackle or nose tackle, cornerback, and tight end. So we start with the inside linebacker position. And you look at this position for the Ravens. Of course, Ray Lewis was a fixture at the middle linebacker position for the Ravens for so many years. Well, he's gone now. And L.A.B was the best middle linebacker for the Ravens in the 2012 season anyhow. And Jameel McClain is a guy that's often injured. And so I think the Ravens are going to need an inside linebacker. If L.A.B is not back, they could possibly need two middle linebackers. And look, I think they're going to draft one first and foremost. That first selection in the draft, their first round pick will be a middle linebacker, I believe. But if Donnell L.A.B isn't back, you probably are going to need two of them. And I can see the Ravens addressing this with a veteran because, again, I think McClain and L.A.B are going to be your starters inside for the Ravens. But Jameel McClain is a guy that's often injured, so you're going to need some depth in the middle of that defense. You look at guys like Brad Jones, Brady James, Takeo Spikes, or Keith Brookings. These are all guys that are veterans that can come in. They don't have to start, especially the last three that I named in Brookings, Spikes, and James. These guys don't have to start. These aren't starters anymore. These are guys that come in, can help you stop the run. They're not going to be guys that you want to put out in space, but if you're looking for guys that can be thumpers in the middle of that defense, and look, the Ravens need that. They were really poor against the run in the 2012 season. They need guys that are going to come in and fill those gaps, and so they could use any one of those veterans to come in and help fill that void. But again, if they're looking to go young, I think they're going to attack that through the draft. And Brad Jones is a relatively young guy if you're looking for a young guy on the market as well. You look at the safety position, Louis Delmas, Charles Woodson, Chris Clemens, or Kenny Phillips would all fill the void left by Ed Reed if he were to depart. Again, a lot of these Ravens needs are really contingent on whether they re-sign their in-house free agents or not. If Ed Reed is back, you don't need a safety. If you get Kerry Williams back, you don't need a cornerback. If you get Dennis Pitta and Ed Dixon back, you don't need a tight end. It's really simple. If the Ravens take care of their in-house free agents, a lot of these needs go away. And one of the biggest issues for the Ravens was getting Joe Flacco signed. By signing him to a long-term deal and not having to franchise him, they freed up a lot of money under the cap. And so I think they should be able to find a way to work out deals with a lot of these guys. However, there's so many guys that they want to re-sign that they're going to ask guys like Anquan Bolden to take a pay cut. And right now, Anquan Bolden said, no, I'm not taking a pay cut. It's against my principles. I would never come back to the table and ask you for money. So why would you come back to the table and ask me to take less? That's not how it works, and I'm not taking a pay cut. And I like the way he thinks. I like his stance, and I think that the Ravens are going to end up parting ways with Anquan Bolden. And if they do, I think it's a mistake. But again, if you need the money, you need the money. I just think there's different ways you can go about it. And Anquan Bolden was a huge part of you winning the Super Bowl, and maybe he won't be back in the 2013 season, but we'll see. But Louis Delmas is a guy that is never healthy. But when he is, he's a difference maker. And he fits what the Baltimore Ravens do on defense. And so he's an interesting prospect, I think, in free agency because some team is going to take a chance, and he may pay dividends for that team that decides to give him a look because he's a really good safety when healthy. Charles Woodson is Ed Reed. And so basically, if you swap out one for one, you're getting the same guy, an aging veteran that can still get it done, that's a solid player. But I don't think if you're the Ravens, if you get rid of Ed Reed, if Ed Reed doesn't return, I don't think you want to replace Ed Reed with Ed Reed in the form of Charles Woodson. I think you want to go the younger, cheaper route if you're going to do that. So another guy, Chris Clemens or Kenny Phillips, these are both solid safeties that can come in and fill that void and be really good for you. The problem with Kenny Phillips is he can't stay healthy. When he's healthy, highly productive. Problem is, he's often injured. And so here's a guy, just like Louis Delmas, that if he can stay healthy, can really come in and shore up that safety position for you. You look at the nose tackle position for the Baltimore Ravens, and they struggled in the 2012 season. That was part of the reason why they gave up so many rushing yards and were so bad against the run, because their nose tackle position was really non-existent. They were not keeping the linebackers clean like they should, and they weren't penetrating. They weren't staying solid at the point of attack, and so they're going to look to upgrade that position. Kimiatu won't be back, so guys like Isaac Sopoaga and Ricky Jean Francois, I love saying that, will be guys that I think the Ravens might target. Both of these players, Sopoaga and Ricky Jean Francois, are both from the 49ers franchise. And so I think that the Ravens are definitely going to look to upgrade that nose tackle position. And those are two guys that I think can definitely help them do that. You look at the cornerback position, and if Kerry Williams isn't re-signing again, everything is contingent on whether the Ravens re-sign their own free agents. If Kerry Williams is not back, they're going to have to replace him. And if they have to replace him, here are some guys that I think can help them out. Mike Jenkins is a guy that used to start in Dallas, made a Pro Bowl in Dallas, has the potential to be a solid corner in this league. He got injured, and the Cowboys ended up replacing him, and he was never really the same in Dallas. A fresh start might be what Mike Jenkins needs, and I think he could come in and help you at the cornerback position if need be. A guy like Bradley Fletcher is someone in the St. Louis Rams organization that was a solid player before the injury last year. He had a significant injury, missed a good portion of the season, only played in 2 games, and so he'll be coming back off of that injury. If he's 100%, he's a really solid corner that I think a lot of people don't really know a lot about, and he's physical, he's long, and I think he's a guy that could fit into the Ravens organization very well. Another guy that could come in and help you out at the cornerback position, and you wouldn't have to pay a lot for, would be Chris Houston. He's a guy that has been around the league. He played with Atlanta. His last stop was in Detroit. He's solid. He's not a eye-popping corner. He's not a guy that's going to go out there and wow you with the things that he does on the football field. He's just solid. He's okay. And the Ravens, I don't know if they have the money to go out and get a guy like Derek Cox, Sean Smith, Aqib Talib. They don't have that kind of money available to them, so they're going to have to go after the next tier of corners, and I think Chris Houston is in that next tier, or maybe the tier below the next tier. So the Ravens are going to have to find a way to get a guy in there to help them out if Kerry Williams is not back in the 2013 season. And I think all of those guys I just named, and there are others on the free agent market, can do just that for the Ravens. You look at the tight end position, I don't really think that the tight end position will be a need for the Ravens, as I think that Ed Dixon and Dennis Pitta will be back with the Ravens. And so I don't really think that's going to be an issue for the Ravens moving forward. So looking at this team, I asked the question, did they make a deal with the devil? Because I felt like they just had so many pressing needs, so many guys that potentially might not be back. It's one thing when you have guys like Matt Burke and Ray Lewis retire. It's a whole separate issue when 5 or 6 of your starters who were integral parts of your Super Bowl winning team aren't back because you couldn't afford to have them back. That's a big problem. And the Ravens are really facing that kind of problem. They're staring it right in the face. Anquan Bolden might not be back because they might ask him to take a pay cut. And if they are able to reach some kind of agreement with Bolden where he takes a pay cut or they have to release him. And right now, Anquan Bolden is staying steadfast to what he believes, and he's not taking a pay cut. So if the Ravens decide to release him and that frees up some cap space, then they will be able to re-sign 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 of these guys that are free agents. But as it stands right now, the Ravens could be in some serious trouble if they don't re-sign some of these guys. It's hard to make a Super Bowl run as it is, just keeping your team intact. Try losing 4 or 5 of the guys that really helped you get that Super Bowl championship. It makes it that much harder, and the Ravens right now are staring that in the face. But that's going to do it for the Ravens. I think the Ravens have to find a way to get some of these guys back in the fold. I feel like L.A.B will be back. I'm not so sure about Kruger nor Williams, and that's going to be tough for the Ravens. They're going to have to find replacements to come in and fill those voids, whether it be through the draft or free agency. We'll see, but the Ravens are the Super Bowl champions, and until someone knocks them off, they are the reigning Super Bowl champions. So we'll see what the Ravens are able to do in free agency in this offseason to help this team somewhat stay together. But that's going to do it for the Baltimore Ravens in the market.
Baltimore Ravens, the market.